Marcus Webb has run the Empire Pawn Shop for 23 years. He's seen everything pass through his doors. Wedding rings sold by desperate husbands, guitars pawned by failed musicians, watches traded for drug money. Every object tells a story. Most are sad, some are criminal. But tonight, at 9:47 p.m., someone brings in a violin, a 1890 Italian crafted instrument, worth maybe $15,000. Beautiful, rare, and soaked in blood from 10 years ago. Marcus recognizes it immediately. It belonged to Sarah Mitchell, a 17-year-old violin prodigy who was murdered in 2015. The case went cold. The killer was never found. And the man who just handed Marcus the violin says he found it in a storage unit. He's lying. Marcus knows it. And over the next 8 hours, 5 more people will walk through that door, each connected to the violin, to Sarah, to that unsolved murder. Objects don't lie, but people do. And tonight, the truth comes with a price tag. The Empire Pawn Shop sat on 8th and Carter like a fortress made of broken dreams. Steel security bars on windows, bulletproof glass partition separating customers from merchandise. Rows of guitars, power tools, jewelry, electronics. Each item a small tragedy. A moment when someone needed cash more than memories. Marcus Webb, 51 years old, graying hair, reading glasses perched on his nose, sat behind the counter working on his ledger. Business had been slow tonight. Tuesday usually was. A few regulars pawning the same items they pawned every month. A cycle of desperation Marcus had watched for 2 decades. The door chimed. Marcus looked up. A man entered, mid-30s, wearing a cheap jacket and nervous energy. He carried a violin case. Not the modern rectangular kind. An old-fashioned curved case, leather worn smooth by decades of handling. "Help you?" Marcus asked, his tone neutral. "Never show interest. First rule of pawn shops." The man approached the counter, set the case down carefully. "I need to sell this. Found it in a storage unit I bought at auction. It's old. Thought it might be worth something." Marcus studied the man. Twitchy fingers, eyes that didn't hold contact. Story sounded rehearsed. "Let me see it." The man opened the case. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, was a violin. Dark wood, elegant curves, craftsmanship that spoke of another century. Marcus's breath caught, but he kept his face neutral. He knew this violin. 10 years ago, Marcus had been called to identify items at a crime scene. His shop had been robbed 3 months prior. Some guitars, a laptop, jewelry. The detective thought the murder victim might have the stolen goods. Marcus had gone to the warehouse where they'd found Sarah Mitchell's body. A 17-year-old violin prodigy, strangled, left among boxes and forgotten furniture. Her violin had been beside her. Marcus had seen it, remembered the way the police had photographed it, cataloged it as evidence. This was that violin. He was certain. "Where'd you say you got this?" Marcus asked carefully. "Storage auction. Unit 247 at Secure Space on Hamilton. Guy defaulted on rent. I bid $300, won the unit. This was inside." Marcus picked up the violin gently, turned it over. On the back, near the tailpiece, a small inscription. SM Dream Big. Sarah Mitchell. Her initials. The same inscription from the crime scene photos. "I can give you $500, Marcus said. The man's eyes lit up. "I was hoping for more. Internet says these Italian violins can be worth $500. Cash. Now." Marcus's tone left no room for negotiation. The man hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, deal." Marcus pulled $500 bills from the register, counted them out. The transaction took 2 minutes. The man signed the pawn slip with a fake name. Marcus could tell, and left quickly. Alone, Marcus stared at the violin. Sarah Mitchell's violin. The one that had been cataloged as evidence in her murder. The one that should have been in a police evidence locker. The one that somehow ended up in a storage unit that a nervous man just pawned. Marcus picked up his phone. He should call Detective Ray Chandler. Report this. But something stopped him. If he called now, the violin disappeared into evidence again. The case stayed cold. The killer stayed free. Marcus made a different choice. He placed the violin on the shelf behind the counter, visible but protected, and waited. 10:15 p.m. The door chimed again. A woman entered, late 40s, expensive coat over casual clothes, face lined with the particular exhaustion of grief that never quite heals. Marcus recognized her immediately, though they'd never met. Catherine Mitchell, Sarah's mother. She approached the counter slowly, her eyes scanning the merchandise with the careful attention of someone looking for something specific. Then she saw it, the violin. Her hand went to her mouth. "Where did you get that?" Her voice cracked. Marcus kept his tone gentle. "Someone pawned it an hour ago." "Why?" "That's my daughter's violin. Sarah. She was murdered 10 years ago. That violin was with her. It was evidence. It should be." Catherine's voice broke. "It should be in police custody." "I know who Sarah was," Marcus said quietly. "I'm sorry for your loss." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "I've been looking for that violin for 10 years. The police said it went missing from evidence. I hired a private investigator. Spent thousands. I just wanted it back. It was the last thing she touched before." She couldn't finish. "Ma'am, I need to ask you something. Did Sarah have a storage unit?" Catherine shook her head. "No. She was 17. She lived at home." "Why?" "The man who pawned this said he found it in a storage unit auction. Unit 247 at Secure Space on Hamilton." Catherine pulled out her phone, made a note. "I'm calling the police." "Wait." Marcus raised a hand. "If you call now, this becomes evidence again. Locked up. You might never see it. But if we wait, maybe we find out who put it in that storage unit. Maybe we find out who killed Sarah." Catherine stared at him. "You think the person who pawned it?" "I think he's connected. And I think if we wait, more people will come. People always come back to pawn shops. Objects have gravity." Catherine hesitated, then nodded. 1 hour. If nothing happens, I'm calling Detective Chandler." She sat in the waiting area, never taking her eyes off the violin. 11:03 p.m. The door chimed. A man in his 60s entered. Distinguished, expensive suit, the kind of confidence money buys. He walked directly to the counter like he owned the place. "I'm looking for a violin," he said. 1890 Italian. "I was told it might have come through here." Marcus's instincts sharpened. "Who told you that?" "That's not relevant. I'm prepared to pay well. $20,000. No questions. 20 grand for a violin worth 15. Marcus's suspicion deepened. "Why?" "Because it's important to me. Do you have it or not?" Marcus glanced at Catherine, who had stood up, recognition dawning on her face. "Richard Campbell," she said, her voice cold. "What are you doing here?" Richard turned, and his composure cracked slightly. "Catherine, I didn't expect." "You're Sarah's old violin teacher," Catherine said. "You testified at the investigation. Said you hadn't seen her the day she died." "I hadn't." "Then why are you here looking for her violin?" Richard's jaw tightened. "This isn't what it looks like." "Then explain it," Marcus said. Richard looked between them, calculating. "Fine. 10 years ago, I made a mistake. I was Sarah's teacher. She was talented, exceptional. I got her an audition with Juilliard. But there was competition. Another student, Thomas Hart, my other prodigy. Only one scholarship available. I gave Sarah an advantage. shared the audition piece early, helped her prepare privately. Thomas found out, confronted Sarah. They argued. Badly. I wasn't there, but I heard about it. A week later, Sarah was dead. Thomas disappeared. Left town. I've always wondered. You think Thomas killed her? Catherine whispered. I don't know. But the violin, it was at the crime scene. Then it vanished from evidence. I've been looking for it ever since. I thought if I could find it, maybe there'd be something. DNA, evidence, something that would prove Thomas did it or didn't. I owe Sarah that much. You owe her the truth, Marcus said. Did you rent a storage unit to hide the violin? What? No. I've been trying to find it, not hide it. Marcus studied him. Told the truth, probably. Or very good at lying. The violin came from a storage unit. 247 at Secure Space. Mean anything to you? Richard's face went pale. Thomas Hart had a storage unit. Before he left town, he defaulted on it. I heard about it from his mother. She mentioned the number because she was trying to pay the back rent. 247. Catherine grabbed the counter. Thomas had Sarah's violin. He killed her and kept it as what? A trophy? Or he took it to protect it? A new voice said. Everyone turned. A man stood in the doorway. Late 20s, thin, haunted eyes. He'd entered so quietly no one had heard the chime. Thomas, Richard breathed. Thomas Hart stepped forward slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. I didn't kill Sarah, but I know who did, and I've been running from them for 10 years. Midnight. Marcus locked the door, flipped the close sign. 5 people in the shop now. Marcus, Catherine, Richard, Thomas, and the truth that had been buried for a decade. Thomas sat in the waiting area, hands shaking. Sarah and I were friends. More than friends. We competed, but we respected each other. When Richard told her about the audition piece early, she told me, felt guilty, wanted to give it up. I said no, told her she deserved it. She worked harder than anyone. Then why did you leave? Catherine asked, her voice thick. Because the night Sarah died, I saw something. I was at the warehouse district, had a part-time job loading trucks. I saw a car, recognized it. Someone I knew, someone who had reason to want Sarah out of the way. Marcus asked. Thomas looked at Richard. Your wife, Helen Campbell. Richard's face drained of color. That's impossible. Helen was home that night. No, she wasn't. She was at the warehouse. I saw her park, saw her go inside. 20 minutes later, she came out, fast, nervous, drove away. Next morning, Sarah was found dead in that warehouse. I wanted to go to the police, but Thomas's voice cracked. Helen's family is connected. Money, lawyers, power. I was 19, nobody, a music student. She'd destroy me, so I ran. Took the violin because it was all I had left of Sarah. Put it in storage because I couldn't keep it with me. Then I defaulted on rent and disappeared completely. Why are you back now? Catherine asked. Because guilt is heavier than fear. I've been living with this for 10 years. And when I heard someone was asking about the violin, I knew it was time. Richard stood slowly, his face a mask of confusion and horror. Why would Helen? Sarah was just a student. Why would she? Because Sarah was your student, Thomas said quietly. Your favorite. Helen was jealous. Everyone saw it. The way you talked about Sarah, the extra lessons, the private sessions. Helen thought you were having an affair. I wasn't. Sarah was 17. She was like a daughter to me. But Helen didn't believe that. And jealousy kills just as sure as hate. Marcus pulled out his phone. Time to call Detective Chandler. 1:30 a.m. Detective Ray Chandler arrived with 2 uniformed officers. Marcus told the story. Catherine provided her account. Richard confirmed Thomas's timeline. Thomas gave his statement about seeing Helen Campbell at the warehouse. Ray listened, made notes, then made a call. "We're bringing Helen Campbell in for questioning. 10-year-old cold case, but if the evidence holds," he looked to the violin, "and I think it will." He turned to Thomas. "You ran from a murder scene. Didn't report what you saw. That's obstruction. You're looking at charges." "I know, but at least Sarah's family will know the truth." Catherine walked to Thomas, looked him in the eye. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she did something unexpected. She hugged him. "You were just a kid. Scared. I understand. Thank you for coming back." Thomas broke down crying. 3 weeks later, DNA evidence from the violin matched Helen Campbell. Skin cells under the strings where she'd grabbed it from Sarah's hands during the struggle. Helen's lawyer tried to fight it, but the evidence was solid. She confessed, jealousy, rage, a moment of violence that ended a girl's life. Helen Campbell was sentenced to 25 years. Marcus stood in his shop, the violin now back with Catherine Mitchell. She donated it to the youth orchestra in Sarah's name. A scholarship fund had been created. Sarah's music would live on. Thomas Hart took a plea deal. Community service probation. He started teaching violin to underprivileged kids, paying forward the gift Sarah never got to give. Richard Campbell retired from teaching. The guilt of not seeing his wife's jealousy, of inadvertently putting Sarah in danger, was too much. And Marcus went back to running his pawn shop, but he looked at every object differently now, because he'd learned something that night. Objects don't just tell stories. Sometimes they demand justice. Sometimes they're the only witnesses who don't lie. Don't forget, don't look away. The violin had waited 10 years to speak. It had passed through hands. Killer to storage, storage to pawn shop to truth. Objects have patience humans lack. Marcus updated his ledger. In the column for the violin, he wrote, "Item returned to rightful purpose. Justice served. No price tag. Some things he'd learned can't be pawned. Some things can only be redeemed." The door chimed. A new customer. A new object. A new story waiting to be told. Marcus looked up. "Help you." And the Empire Pawn Shop continued its work, bearing witness to the city's desperation, its secrets, its occasional salvation. Because every object has a history, and in Marcus Webb's hands, history doesn't stay buried. It gets appraised, cataloged, and when necessary, exposed. The pawn shop never closes. The stories never end. And sometimes, if you listen closely to the objects on the shelves, you can hear them whispering. We remember. We saw. We know. Silent witnesses, waiting for someone to listen. Tonight, Marcus listened, and Sarah Mitchell finally got justice.